Hi, everyone. I'm Natalie Gochnour. This is Both Sides of the Aisle. I represent the political center and have on my political left Shireen Ghorbani.
Hello, and hey, listeners. Very excited because we have a special guest today. Do you want to do some introductions?
I love having my good friend, dear friend, Sophia DiCaro here on the show. She is the senior advisor to Governor Cox and the executive director of the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget. Super important position, Shireen.
Super important position. So, Sophia, thank you for joining us.
She's a listener, too.
Yes. I am a loyal listener, and I know the listeners probably can't see my face, but I am smiling right now because it is a thrill and exciting and an honor to be here today.
Well, thank you so much. I would love for the listeners to get to know you just a little bit. Can you tell us, did you grow up in Utah? Tell me just a little bit about kind of your background.
Yeah, so I was actually born on a military base in California. My dad was in the United States Marine Corps stationed in Japan, and met my mother there. My sister and I were both born on a military base, but because he was originally from Utah, from Price, Utah.
Oh, wow.
We relocated back to the great state of Utah. I grew up in Carbon County, and so very rural area. It's actually, I grew up in Wellington, but because a lot of people might not be familiar with Wellington, about 4 minutes outside of Price, that's where my hometown was. Yeah, that's where it started.
Yeah.
Shireen, I'll add in there, just, you know this, but some of our state's most impressive resumes and folks come from the Carbon County, Emery County area, Price area. And I just always find that interesting.
Nice.
You know, that there's Supreme Court justices and some really important legislators. And it's a powerhouse place in this state if people don't know it.
Yeah, well, and I'll say it's also been home to, we'll get into politics in a minute, but home to some pretty prominent Democrats in the state as well.
It's true.
Yeah.
Very true.
So, very true.
Because of the mining heritage and
Union.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about what it was like to grow up out there. I mean, I'm sure your experience was different than a lot of kids.
It was very different. My dad was also a coal miner and served in the National Guard, Utah National Guard down there. My mother, she ran a little small business in our basement so that she could be with the kids, but she was the local seamstress of the town. And so they were very business-minded and very hardworking.
Yeah.
My dad worked a lot of overtime on Sundays to try to, earn time and a half. So we were very familiar with the union culture, but they were very much Republicans as well in a Democrat area at the time, although now it's shifted a lot, but very diverse area. When I was growing up, it was one of the most diverse counties of the state. A lot of immigrants from all over the world ended up there with the coal mines, with the railroads. Sophia, flash us forward. What got you into public policy? I know a little bit of this story, but tell our listeners. So the funny thing is my mother, I mentioned she came here from Japan. She became a naturalized citizen when I was young, went through the test, knew a lot about American politics, and she knew about every rumor, all the drama with every politician. And I grew up hearing about all these crazy stories. And we always had, Business Week on the table and CNN and Fox on the TV. So I kind of grew up in that space and became very fascinated with just public policy. I actually wanted to be an attorney and even got into law school. And I had a path in mind. I wanted to work for the Department of State in Japan.
Yeah.
That didn't work out because I decided to do an internship with the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget and thought, you know what, I'll put law school on hold. I'm going to try to get some experience in the budget office. And here we are.
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
One principle there that I love, this is similar in my life. I wonder if it is in yours, Shireen, but my parents were avid readers of news stories and whatnot. In my case, it would have been Time Magazine, Newsweek, these sorts of things. It would have been Walter Cronkite rather than CNN and Fox, because it was pre-cable in my young days. But it's really interesting how much our parents influence our future choices.
Yeah, I think that really resonates with me too. I'm also struck by your story as the daughter of an immigrant myself. I really remember, just the relationship that my father had with this country and really thinking about what it meant to live here versus Iran and the difference that he saw for me as a child born here versus a child born there, right? So do you know if when your mother became a citizen, did she get a letter from her senator?
I don't remember. I was very young at the time. But I knew she knew a lot more about American government than many of the people we were working with at the time.
Yes. So you ultimately, we can fast forward a bit, you ran for office.
I did.
So tell me a little bit about what prompted that.
Yeah. So interestingly, I mentioned I started in the governor's office planning a budget. And then I actually did that for 7 years. I started out doing demographic and economic analyses, doing the work that actually is now become the Kem Gardner Policy Institute. So a lot of love for the work that goes on with the Institute. And then I ended up gravitating to the budget world and ended up over the economic development portfolio. That led to an opportunity with the Governor's Office of Economic Development at the time when they first created that department. So I started under the Leavitt administration and then had the opportunity to work with all the governors thereafter. But
Huntsman, Herbert, Cox,
Olene Walker. So it's been a very great experience. But I ended up in economic development. I was there for 6 years. I did finance work, and Spencer Eccles became executive director at the time. I then became his deputy director and chief operating officer. And then after 6 years, I thought to myself, I had 3 kids at the time. I wanted some more time with them. I loved public policy, but I just needed a little break, and started looking into who was my personal elected officials. And my representative had won by 77 votes in the last race. And I thought, wow, I could try to swing 77 votes. Not knowing about the campaign world at all, because I was always from the policy perspective.
Yeah. And if you knew about the political side, you probably wouldn't do it. So that's always a good thing when you don't know.
It's probably true. So, we risked everything. I left my job, threw my name in, went all the way in. This was the year that vote by mail was implemented. And first year anything's implemented, it's a bit clunky. But on election night, I lost my race by 33 votes. I was really upset because that's like a classroom. I could have driven 33 people to the polls. But 2 weeks later, because we didn't have visibility into what the count would look like. 2 weeks later, discovered I had actually won by around 228-ish votes. And so had the great opportunity to serve West Valley City, one of the districts in West Valley City. Very rewarding experience. But I'm in a swing area. Ran for re-election. That was the year that Trump ran for the first time, and it swung in the opposite direction. Also ran for county council at large. 2018.
It's a tough race.
That was tough, and that was the year that marijuana was on the ballot, and
Medicaid,
everything controversial.
You're running as a Republican in Salt Lake County.
Medicaid. So I didn't win that race either, but it was meant to be because it kind of led to this role. I did have the opportunity to serve in the private sector with the Sinosure Group, an investment advisory firm, and did compliance for them.
We're going to continue this in our second segment. We'll talk more about budget issues, top policy issues. Stay tuned, everybody. Natalie Gochnour with Shireen Ghorbani and Sophia DiCaro.
You're listening to Both Sides of the Aisle on Utah Public Radio. We love to hear from listeners like you. If you would like to send us a comment, email bsotapodcast@gmail.com. That's bsotapodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. Shireen Ghorbani on the left.
Natalie Gochnour in the political center. This is Both Sides of the Aisle, and Shireen and I are so excited because we have Sophia DiCaro as a guest on the program today. Sophia is a senior advisor to Governor Cox. She's also the executive director of the Governor's Office of Planning and Budget, one of the most important roles, I might add, in the state. How big of a budget do you oversee, Sophia?
Well, right now it's $30 billion, $30.84 billion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hard for people to wrap their...
Yeah, just get that in your mind for a minute.
Yeah.
That's the largest enterprise in the state.
Yeah.
It's pretty big. Yeah, it's pretty big.
Yeah. Okay, so, and then if you get that in your mind, what is it that motivates you every day to show up for work and do this very difficult job?
You know what? Every single day that I come to work, I have to solve a problem of some kind.
Yeah.
It's oftentimes more than one. And it gets me excited because there's never a dull day. I can sincerely say there's never a boring day in this role. There's always something to solve, and then, you leave saying, okay, I accomplished something for the greater good.
Untangled that knot. Yeah.
What's it like?
And it's meaningful.
What's it like working with Governor Cox so
Cox
closely?
Is great. And, I know we're going to talk a little bit about what it entails to build a budget, but he actually directly participates in that, as does the lieutenant governor. Mm-hmm. And we do a lot of the nitty gritty work to balance it all and figure out how much we even have and do a lot of that technical work. And we work to provide a menu of options of where we'd like to go. But it's typically Governor Cox who actually comes up with the big, this is where I want to go. What can we accomplish with this, big thing? And
idea? Yeah.
Example would be housing.
Yeah.
Homeless was a thing. Housing was a theme. Water was a theme one year. But that's him. That's reflective of him.
Yeah. So I think the thing that I believe that budgets are moral documents, right? We can see what values are really being driven forward. You gave some examples when we think about an issue like housing or addressing, what folks who are facing in our state that end up living on our streets might need in terms of infrastructure, state funding. Can you help? I think one of the things that I've appreciated in the last few years is I actually think that for as confusing, as big as that number feels, as divorced as I think the average Utahn may feel from our state budget, your office is actually producing a number of documents to help people understand it and navigate it. Can you talk a little bit about how, where would people find this and how would they start to make sense of $30 billion?
Yeah, no, great question. Well, you could go to gopb.utah.gov to find our policy document. That has been a personal goal, is to make sure we have a document that is easily digestible to the broader public, to help make that easier for people to understand. Because what we're trying to do is, kind of to your point, you call it a moral document. I call it hey, this is where you're going to put your money where your mouth is. We have a saying in our office is, talk does not cook rice. Someone's actually got to cook the rice.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, this is, you can talk all day long about what you want to do, but you're not going to accomplish anything unless you put investment
resources
behind it.
Yep.
And so that's what this budget policy is recommendation to the legislature. We very much honor the constitutional roles that we have versus the legislature.
Sure.
And we know very much that it's the legislature's constitutional duty to enact the budget.
Yep.
What we produce is a recommendation to the legislature.
Yeah.
But it helps set the policy stage because we are closest to what's going on with the problems that we're experiencing or seeing. We have a budget process that's outlined in statute, and all the agencies submit their budget requests to us, and we get requests from nonprofits as well. But what that does is gives us a little bit of insight into what the issues are that are out there, and we can start to clearly see, we got a gazillion requests that are water related this year,
right.
Or we've got a lot of requests that are housing related, or boy, everyone's asking for an attorney this year. What's going on?
Yeah.
And we can start to build a story around what's coming in. We have a good way to see what the needs are. And then we can start to build a story, provide a menu. And, obviously we're going to have to assess resources along the way as well and look at the limitations we have. But then that's kind of, how it starts to come together.
So I think something that you said is really important there, which is that this is the actual approval of this budget is the job of your legislator. So this is where I really want to encourage people, if you want to see things, particular things in a budget, if you've got real concerns that we're underfunding housing, that we haven't addressed water in the ways that we need to, your local representative is where you need to develop those relationships. Is that right?
That's right.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Well, and the other thing, I hope our listeners are catching this, but listen how conversant our state budget director is in this work.
Yes.
So have confidence in this budget, have confidence in our governor, but also recognize that the governor's just one piece of this, and the legislature holds a really big piece of it. That's their power to appropriate.
Yeah. And
I'll give an example of how this works. I've done a lot of work on Great Salt Lake. The commissioner of the Great Salt Lake wanted $30 million in the last budget. Governor recommended 16. Does that sound about right, Sophia? Yeah, 16. Legislature appropriated, I think, about 1.
Yeah.
Now, it was a tough year. Mm-hmm. And if I've gotten any of those numbers wrong, just go ahead and correct me. It's okay. But in magnitude.
That's what happened. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing that happens.
Yeah.
And then you go at it again. We'll get more in the coming year to do great things. But I want to ask Sophia, what are we doing well as a state, and what are some of the things you're worried about?
Well, we have the pleasure of pitching to the rating agencies every year.
Why would that matter? What is that?
Yeah. So, the people who give us our credit rating, we consistently get a AAA credit rating. When we, issue out bonds, we get a better rate.
Is there anything better than AAA?
No, we're the top.
Best.
We're
and
the
this
top.
is Standard & Poor's. This is Fitch,
Moody's. Yes. And so we do a lot of the due diligencing, working with the treasurer's office when we need to go out to bond or when we need to just, get our annual checkup. And I get the honor to sell the state of Utah, which is a lot of fun for me because there's such a great story to tell. And so I think there's a lot of things from a fiscal standpoint we're doing really well. And the things that we're not doing well in, or just struggling in, I should say, we're transparent about that so that we know that this is what we need to go solve. But we tell them. We know where our weaknesses are. We know where our risks are. And by the way, here's our risk mitigation plan. Here's what we're doing to partner with the legislature to address these areas of risk. And that speaks well for Utah, too. So we're very much aware of where the challenges are, where the opportunities are. But we're very transparent about it because that's where the opportunity is to make a difference.
Yeah. Little color commentary here. When Sophia talks about defending our creditworthiness in New York City, to these big rating agencies, they all have analysts that study our state. And I've been in those meetings before where they'll say things like, don't you have a lot of car dealerships in that part of the state? Isn't that a place where you're moving the Costco from, Midvale to Murray? And you're just like, these people know us so well.
They do. It's scary. Do. Yeah. And, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize my team. I have an incredible team. It's definitely not all me, right? And I want to make sure that I elevate them because it's them who
She has a terrific chief economist.
Great chief economist, great managing directing team, but just great staff. Yeah. And I just love my team to pieces. And it's them who's doing all the nitty gritty that makes our state look good.
Yeah.
What are you worried about?
Yeah.
So, the risks, talking about the risks we have, water's one that I feel like we've been proactive on, but we've got to continue those efforts there. Homeless and housing, definitely housing is a big threat. And as you all know, it's been a multi-year effort there. It's going to have to continue to be a very much a concentrated effort. We've put a lot of money behind those things, but there's also now policy changes that need to be made. Yeah. And so, we want to work really closely with the legislature on those things. But housing is probably the biggest. And then, of course, we want to keep a healthy tax environment as well. Yeah. We want to have a reputation of being good tax environment, but we also have to balance out the needs that we'll continue to have going forward. So it's always a fine balance as well, but really try to be intentional on that too.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. And as I've seen our legislature kind of go after tax cut after tax cut, and I just think, I'd really rather see not a single homeless child in our state. I'd really rather see, like the kind of social services that could really help families move out of poverty. So I think that is such a difficult balance. That's such a difficult kind of, again, this kind of goes back to me for the economic decisions that we make, the budgets that we make are a reflection of our values and our morals. And I think it's really, we've done well. I do think we've done well. I, of course, from my political perspective, believe we could do better. But I also just think the thing that's so exciting about Utah, I don't know if you feel this way, water's a bit different, but we're still small enough that it feels like we can solve big problems. Do you feel like that's how you all feel?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And it's kind of the blessing of being in a big, small town. Yeah. In a lot of ways. Because, yes, we're growing and yes, we're big. Natalie always talks about how we're moving up. Now we're, in the mid-sized state, which is exciting because I always tell my kids even, like, the upward mobility is here in Utah. Yeah. Be part of what's building Utah and making Utah a great state to be. And so the opportunities are here. But yeah, What's difficult is trying to convey where our resources go, right? Right. Most of our resources, our state resources, actually go to education. and we all know education is, we have to continue to propel our state in education. Well, what comes after that? It's social services.
Yeah.
Those are our two biggest pieces of the budget. And so
people.
People. And it's also very expensive. Mm-hmm. And so we are trying to be intentional on how can we move the needle. But if we were to fund all the needs that come forward for social services, we would have nothing left for the rest of the budget, which is corrections, public safety, all the other agencies that are providing services. And that's what makes it so hard. So I'm really popular when there's money, but I think people avoid me altogether when there's not. And now we're going into a little tighter times, and it's a hard place to be in because we can make a meaningful impact, but it's hard to even share with the agencies, like to give them that picture of how we're trying to balance those resources for everybody.
Yeah.
I love what I've learned, just in listening to Sophia right now. And we only have like a minute left in the program. Sophia, make the case for public service for us.
Oh, gosh. Yes. Right?
I mean, I just think it's a fun thing to think about for a minute because you have the type of skills that could be rewarded in the private marketplace, twofold, what at least financially you get in the public sector. But you're in public service. What's it like?
I just think I think most people are driven by altruistic intentions and want to do good things for the greater good. And you actually benefit personally when you're doing service and doing things for other people. And public service is a great way to do that. And there are so many ways to serve. Like, you don't have to run for office. Right. You don't have to, be the budget director for the state. You can serve on boards. You can go testify in your legislative committees.
Vote.
Vote. Yeah.
Some people don't even do that.
Especially in municipals.
Yes. Or just be involved and really get to know. Like, everything's so transparent. You can go to le.utah.gov and watch legislative bills move forward, watch legislation, and be part of that. Even just getting familiar with what's going on there is a great way to serve the public.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah. That's a wrap. Get engaged.
Yes, get engaged.
Amen.
Shireen Ghorbani, Natalie Gochnour, and Sophia DiCaro. Thanks, everybody, for listening.